My name is Nauzanin Knight. Title, I'm a director, writer, producer. During my first major projects, I guess some of the things that I learned on the producing side was the value of getting your crew to commit to a project wholeheartedly. And I think part of that is being able to communicate the impact of the project, the potential impact, where it stands in the zeitgeist, why it means something to you. And so, you know, when you first start out and you don't really have a big budget for your project, sometimes you have to call on favors from friends, and it really helps to be able to communicate why this project means something and why they should invest their time and their creativity into it. And on the directing side, you know, I think I learned how to become a little bit more comfortable with a quiet directing style. I think once, when you start out, you probably assume that directors are really outspoken, that they're going to be the loudest ones in the room, and that's not always the case. I heard a really interesting story about Ang Lee and his producer. For example, one time they brought out the lead actress in a dress, and the producer said for whatever reason Ang Lee just was not smiling. He wasn't happy. He could tell, but he wouldn't say anything. And then he went up to Ang Lee and he said, would you prefer if she wore the red dress? And then all of a sudden he lit up and he became like overjoyed. And it was just I'm not that quiet, but it just, you know, reassured me that there's so many different directing styles. And so I got comfortable with being that sort of quiet, soft-spoken director who can be just intuitive with what's happening on set. I still write all the time, you know, so like I write most of the films that I direct. So I don't necessarily see it as a full switch, but film was an opportunity to exercise all of my passions, you know, whether it be visual language, music, you know, getting to pull together big teams, and writing is a very, you know, sometimes a pretty solitary exercise. And so film was that, you know, a way that I could do more within the community, bring people together, and that's why I think it's an exciting manifestation of the writing. I decided to pursue a career in film sort of in a roundabout way. I did my master's in crime science in the UK, and then after that I was in Israel for 3 years serving at the Baha'i World Center. The Baha'i faith is my religious background, and I was in the research department and really got a chance to reflect while I was there on ways that I'd like to, you know, contribute to discourses of society, change the world through my career, or at least attempt to do that. And while reflecting in front of the shrines and saying prayers, all of a sudden the idea of film came to my head, and it wasn't necessarily in the forefront of my mind the whole time while I was serving there. It just came to my head. And then after that, you know, it's sort of on that inspiration went into film. When I got back from Israel, I set up my film production company, 1844 Studios, and haven't really looked back since then. Documentary, more so, I think my memories of film were more on the scripted side than documentary side. And I remember, like, my mom and her family are really big film buffs, and so whenever the Oscars would come around, we would always go and watch all of the nominated films in every category, and like it depends. It was always hard to find some films, so we'd have to go to like Princess and all of these theaters, small theaters, to find the films or find different copies here and there. But it was just that, like, thinking back on it now, it was such a warm memory from growing up, and I think part of that really contributed to how I feel about film these days. Probably growing up, like, you didn't necessarily see as much representation on screen as I would have liked to have seen, and getting to create films that I would have loved to have seen, I would have learned so much from growing up, feels like a very powerful experience. It feels almost like a cathartic experience, and the fact that, you know, you get to put something out there in the world that would allow others, you know, to be able to see themselves reflected on screen it's humbling, very humbling. I love both. I really can't say whether I prefer documentaries or scripted. They both have special qualities to them. One thing that I love about documentaries is getting to connect to the participants, getting to you know them on such a deep level. The fact that they trust you to tell their stories is really special, and you know, just taking on that responsibility of accurately communicating their stories with the audience it's a very special experience. But on the scripted side, directing actors is it's such a fascinating process. Actors, I think, you know, when I was at the Sundance Collab for directors, they described actors as magical creatures, and I totally agree with that. They're just the way that they could be so in the present, and so in the moment, but still capture a character that they've been developing for, you know, it could be up years that they've been developing a character, and then being able to act and react in the moment. It's a very special skill set, and yeah, I really enjoy that aspect of scripted. I kind of try to wear different hats, and my company kind of shifts between different aspects of the work. When I started the company, it was really with the mind of making a difference in the community, making a difference in the world, and we tried to divide that into different lines of action. So only part of that is creative production, part of that is social action, which is grassroots work, and part of that is influencing discourses of society. So on that side, influencing discourses of society, we did a research project called Building Inclusive Networks in the Film and Television Industry, and it was a study that was funded by Telefilm and the Canada Media Fund and other funders. We got to interview 40 women across Canada who participate in the film and television industry at different parts of the film value chain. And all of these were stories of women of color in the industry and the barriers that they face at networking events. So basically, based on those the qualitative research, we created a report about their experiences in part, but then part of that was like a checklist for how the industry can make sure that their events are more inclusive of everyone, and considering intersectionality as well. So after that report, we got to do quite a bit of consulting with different film and television organizations, and we're really, I guess, yeah, so very surprised that some organizations as high up as the NFB started to implement the findings of the study. And yeah, it's just a small part of the work, but whatever we can do to make sure that the industry is more accessible and more inclusive that's what we will try to do. When we talk about, let's say, representation at networking events, that translates to something a lot bigger. It's not just about, networking events being inclusive, but those are opportunities for people to pitch their projects, and which projects actually get greenlit and which projects are presented to the Canadian audience at large. And how that means, how do Canadians see themselves? So it might start with like a spark of a grain of inspiration at networking events, but then it translates to how do we see ourselves in Canada? What sort of society do we want to build? So I think representation in media matters, because that's how we see ourselves and that's how we see our country continuing to grow or not to grow. And that has implications for how we treat each other.